Hey, folks, happy Friday and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name's Jason Robertson, and I'm here with my partner in crime,
Todd Peterson. Thanks for joining us, folks, as I adjust my camera here. Thanks for joining us on this great Friday. It is still warm in Minnesota, Jason, so I will take the victories, however small.
You know, it's funny you say that. I was outside a little bit this morning doing a little yard work, picking up some sticks, blowing leaves. I'm like, this is pretty great. And can you believe it is the middle of October and the weather is still this good? Like, I can't even stand it, Todd.
You know what the leftists would say, Jason? It's because Trump pulled us out of all those accords.
You know, yeah, the president of the United States can control the weather, evidently.
As it turns out.
So if we only had communism, we could solve the weather.
You and I don't pay enough taxes, Jason. It should be snowing right now, but we're so selfish with the money we make.
That's right. Oh, my gosh. Hey, we got Paul Reese over there. You want to do it, Todd?
Good morning, Paul Reese. Early and often today, folks, if you love delicious coffee and you want to support a disabled veteran-owned company at the same time that shares your values, folks, go to splitrockcoffee.com. That is splitrockcoffee.com. And while you're there, use promo code TODD10. I love to say that my parents have never been more proud of me. I am a promo code TODD10 at splitrockcoffee.com. Subscribe and save today.
Yeah. And today, as we get going, folks, we got all kinds of stuff to talk about. But as we get started, do us a favor. Give us a like, comment where you're watching from, give the show a share. This one will be a great show, too. We used to really talk a lot about when we did kind of more educational shows where we'd be like, share this with friends of yours, especially maybe somebody you don't politically agree with. You know, most of our audience is MAGA, America First people, but we try not to make too much. We're going to make a little fun of the liberals. You know, full disclosure.
Help it. I can't help it.
Yeah, we can't help it. But this will be a show where the first part, we're going to be going through the Supreme Court case about voting rights. And we're going to break it down. We're going to get a little granular. We're going to show you some maps and videos. When you see Ketanji Brown Jackson and listen to what she had to say, you're going to be like, oh, my God, how did this idiot get on the Supreme Court? But we want to just let you know, because some of this stuff is just like Americans hear about it, but they don't really know. And then we're going to go into some Minnesota voting. That's a great litmus test for what's happening in the nation. And then we're going to wrap up on the Rumble only. We got to talk Ilhan Omar. It is Todd's favorite topic. We need to send her home. But for that part, the last half hour of the show, 45 minutes, depending how long we talk, we go Rumble only. And Todd, do you want to give your Rumble spiel?
Well, we love Rumble, folks. It operates just like YouTube, but instead of red, it is green. And instead of getting censored all the time, it is a free speech platform. We love Rumble. We have a great community over there. Paul is on Rumble today. Fally is on Rumble. Good morning, Fally. And Market Zero back for more. Freedom from the Press. Good morning, all. But Rumble lets us say what we want. We can share the truth with you. We don't have to worry about Facebook and YouTube shutting us down because we all know how they feel about the truth.
Yeah. Oh, and prayers to Fally. I think Fally lost her job. So hopefully that's working out for you and the hubby. So, yeah, prayers to you. But as we get going, Todd, I think the first way to talk, many people have probably heard there's the Supreme Court is hearing about a voting rights case. And for those who are watching the video instead of just listening to us on the audio things, I want to illustrate to you what this case is about. And for those who don't know, the case involves the state of Louisiana. And for those who can see on the map, Louisiana is about 20-30% Democrat. And in a state with 20-30% Democrat, you are probably not going to have any House of Representative members that are Democrat. But because of the racial voting rules, which we're going to talk about, Todd will help me break that down, you end up with this District 6 that you see on the map, that is the blue district, that proceeds diagonally from Baton Rouge all the way diagonally across Louisiana. And if you're a smart person, you look and you go, what the hell is that? Who draws a voting map that looks like this? And how is that okay? And you would be surprised to know that in the year of the Lord 2025, because of they passed 14th, 15th Amendment, which Todd will break down in a sec, and then the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, You are allowed in America to have literally a black voting district. Now, you would think we did away with racism. We want to be a colorblind society. How on earth do you get to have a black voting district? And this is the name that Julie's back.
Julia's
Leave me
back every
alone.
week. I'm not laughing at, I'm kind of laughing at you, Julie. Leave me alone. She says, get off my Facebook every week, but she's here. She's helping us in the algorithm. She's tuning in because she wants to learn all about the Supreme Court case that is going to destroy Democrats in the House for the rest of our lifetime, Jason, if they overturn this here. But Julie, welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard, Julie. We love having you. All right, Todd, do you want to explain kind of the amendments and the laws that led to this monstrosity?
I would love to, Jason. I would first like to elucidate for our audio listeners only, Jason. I can't stress this enough. If you can visualize a map and there is a sliver going down diagonally from the northwest section down to the southeast section of Louisiana, a little tiny sliver there across the entire state because they had to gerrymander it specifically for the black population. And Jason, I am all for gerrymandering. I think Republicans are doing a huge disservice again. They're cowards. They're spineless. They should be gerrymandering every state to their advantage. And normally they could get away with it, except when it comes to the black populations in America. You are not allowed to gerrymander. In fact, you have to gerrymander the opposite way and give them everything, even in a deep red state like Louisiana. But this all pins back. Briefly, we'll cover the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. Those are the Civil War, post-Civil War amendments here that freed the slaves. It gave us birthright citizenship, by the way, in the 14th. It snuck in there, and so we'll see that get overturned as well, hopefully. Guaranteed the right to vote. You can't have in the southern states, they implemented poll taxes, the grandfather clause. They tried to stop blacks from voting after they were given their freedom. But then the 15th Amendment guaranteed everybody a right to vote, if you were a man, of course. So I always love, Jason, how in America, blacks were able to vote before women here. And I say that facetiously, but black men were allowed to vote before white women. I think maybe that's what drives all the white lib women crazy these days, all the feminists out there. So you have that as the backdrop, but then what the Supreme Court case is all about now, fast forward 100 years. It took us another 100 years here. In 1960s, you get LBJ's nonsensical Great Society programs. Civil Rights Act is passed. And if you want to say that there was a time and a place for that, maybe they needed it, maybe for 5 years. We still live with the vestiges of that. But the Voting Rights Act is what they are talking about here. Specifically, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. I am going to read the language from that section, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and you tell me how this has been applied fairly over the last 6 decades here. So it says specifically that it prohibits voting practices or procedures that discriminate on the basis of race, color, or membership in one of the language minority groups identified in Section 4, F2, don't we love bureaucracy, of the Act. Most of the cases arising under Section 2, since enacted, involve challenges to at-large election schemes. So the language in there says you can't discriminate based on race, and the glorious race Marxists, the aspiring Rhodesians within our own government here, the South Africans, decided that if you have districts that make up a majority of whites because you live in a majority white state, that is somehow racist because you are disenfranchising both black politicians, as KBJ will claim in a second here. We have the clip for you. And it somehow disenfranchises black voters. Now, they can still go vote. Again, that was the whole premise. Nobody can be precluded from voting, but they can't vote for their preferred person. They can't have representation. And so the amendment swings in the exact opposite direction it was intended to do, which was to ensure everyone had the right to vote. And you have crazy race Marxist Democrats saying that unless you have black specific districts across the United States, they're going to get rid of 10, 20 districts if this gets overturned, because they had to carve out black specific districts because that somehow means that they aren't disenfranchised. Now, it might disenfranchise white populations, a white majority country, disenfranchising all of them, but that's okay because it benefits this minority population. So that's what the Supreme Court is listening to, arguing about Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. The state of Louisiana had to carve out that ridiculous map you see right there, District 6, simply to appease the leftist gods.
And I got to say, it is remarkable to think as you look at this map, like somebody down in Baton Rouge, take race out of it. They have way different concerns than the person way up in the top northwest corner of the state. Like part of why you break out your congressional districts based on geography is that Like, my concerns north of the Twin Cities are different than the concerns in the Twin Cities. And you want people to kind of have like similar, like, hey, here's our concerns. This is our representative who's going to go represent us. And like, if you look at that map, there's no way you can make an argument that that person up in the northwest corner has anything in common with the person down at the lower right other than their race, which is ridiculous. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, wait a second. I thought America was colorblind. I thought we were a colorblind society. I thought like you couldn't discriminate based on race. I thought the very existence of a black district or a white district is antithetical to America. You would be right. When they passed the legislation in the 60s, it was challenged in the court in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And what they said was, the Supreme Court, they said, okay, there were many people doing many things that were bad, like poll taxes, and you had to pass a literacy test. I mean, this was one of the legal arguments. In order to vote, you had to pass a literacy test to vote. And they said because so many blacks hadn't been educated, they can't read. So a literacy test is just a way to screen out blacks from voting. Now, there would be a day where you could probably make that argument, like, hey, they didn't have schools or whatnot. That day is not in the year 2025. Like, as far as I'm concerned, if you can't read English in the year 2025, you probably shouldn't be voting. But they are not even bringing anything like that back. What they did is they took that language from the legislation and said not only should blacks get a right to vote, but they need to have black representatives. So you'd take your black population, you would separate it out, and you would say these people need to have a representative in Congress. And it's remarkable. Like, there isn't an Asian group, there isn't, unless there's a significant enough population or whatnot, but it's antithetical to everything that is America. And the Supreme Court, along the way in the 70s, 80s, 90s, when it was challenged, said, okay, we understand that doesn't fit the colorblind nature of our society, but we're going to allow it. Why are we going to allow it? Because we need to do something to fix the issues that happen coming out of slavery and reintegration. And it brings up a great question for Americans, because I think coming out of the Civil War, that our leaders who put the amendments together didn't really think about long-term consequences. They weren't as skilled as our founding fathers, which is why amending the Constitution can be bad, because you don't think of unintended consequences. Excuse me. Much like birthright citizenship, they wanted to say former slaves are citizens. That was all they were looking to say. Now suddenly somebody from Venezuela who sneaks across the border and drops a baby is a citizen. That was not what they were intending in the 1860s when they passed these laws. So that one hopefully gets reversed. But this one is fascinating. And Justice Thomas had a great exchange that we want to say. And actually the chats are really good. So we got Barb. Racial demographics is and always been against the law. Any law based on race is against the law. That is true. And they allowed the voting laws in the 60s to pass because they were trying to right a wrong. And then what's Jeff saying? All you men are full of B's, back or W. And this man on here, very F me, go find something else to do.
Well, look at his bio.
But he's still got I had my COVID
he's
shot.
boosted.
Way to go, Jeff. Prayers to you.
He sounds boosted. Yeah.
Right. And Mark hits the nail on the head. It's the Democrats' way. If you can't win a fair election, do whatever it takes, right or not, no matter. That's what we're laying out.
I got to make this point too. So Mark makes a great point. Democrats do whatever it takes, right or wrong. Jason, I'm old enough to remember, we talked about on our podcast not long ago. Do you remember when Texas did some redistricting and the left lost their mind over redistricting? And I look at this map of Louisiana and I think, gosh, this seems really similar. and it's extremely racist, and it also disenfranchises every other resident in Louisiana who might have had a different representative, who might have had a different way to vote, but because they had to gerrymander their districts based on race, suddenly they're out of options. So I'm not quite sure. Is gerrymandering good or bad right now? I'm torn, Jason. If I'm a Democrat, Jeff must be so confused right now to be upset or supportive of this process.
Yeah, Jeff's sitting there like, we're in a colorblind society. Yes, we need black districts. It's like, but like I say, legislatively, for everybody asking the question, yes, the court knew that this was racist, and yes, they allowed the Congress to do it because Congress was trying to right some wrongs. And I'm not going to go back and say what happened between the 1860s and 1960s was right. Like, I understand the logic behind, like, hey, we need to find something to fix. The question is, do we still need this 50, 60, 70, 80 years later? And I think, should we play the Clarence Thomas clip? Now, this is audio. There's an overlay on it. But I watched the whole Supreme Court, or listened to the whole Supreme Court hearing. These aren't like televised, but these are pretty phenomenal. And Clarence Thomas, which, Todd, what race is Clarence Thomas?
Well, if you ask a Democrat, he's not a real black. He's just he's one of those house guys, right?
Right.
Yeah. So again, if you're this exposes the whole game too. It turns out they don't care about race; they care about totalitarian identity politics. Like Clarence Thomas is as black as anybody else, but they won't call him a black man. For all my years, for all of Falley's years in the public school system, how many pictures of Clarence Thomas did your school ever hang up during Black History Month in the month of February? The answer is zero, by the way, folks. It is zero. They will never celebrate Clarence Thomas. He's not a real black man to them. But again, it's all about ideology. It's all about worldview than it is about your actual skin color. They're just trying to make some power here. Anne's over on Facebook saying we're making some good points. I like to think so, Anne. I think Jason and I are pretty common sense. This is not anti-black. This is not pro-white. This is simply pro-Constitution and pro-morality here. You can't play favorites. And Jason, I do want to quibble with you before we get to the clips here. I take the Barry Goldwater approach. I would have vehemently opposed the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act in the 1960s here because he saw all the way back then. And by the way, Barry Goldwater was the president of the NAACP in Arizona, president of the Arizona chapter of the NAACP, and he was opposed to these legislative acts because he knew that they would be bastardized. And Lyndon Baines Johnson knew exactly what he was doing when he ushered in these just demonic communist programs because he said, I will have these people voting for the next 200 years for Democrats. It was never well-intentioned. It was sold to the public as well-intentioned. We need to right the wrongs. The wrongs had already been righted here. Blacks were doing fairly well as a community in the 1950s and 60s. We often forget about that. I would challenge anybody to say that black lives have been made better in the 60 years since government got involved in their lives. So I understand the talking point, like maybe we would have back then. I would absolutely have not. And I just did a count, Jason, 62 black representatives and senators in our Congress here. If you're a black resident in any of their districts or states, can you name one way your life is better? And I don't mean you got a larger welfare check or you got released from after some gang banging activity. How is your life actively better because you had a chance to elect these corrupt lunatics? I'm looking at a Maxine Waters. Has anyone in LA had their life improved in 30 plus years of Maxine Waters going to Congress for you? Frederica Wilson, who wears the most ridiculous hats out of Florida, is anyone in her district's life made better? So this is actively harming blacks. That's also my point here. This is a pro-black position, Jason, when we are opposed to this gerrymandering based on race, because I can tell you not a single black life has been made better by all of this supposed representation.
Yeah, it's funny when you put government involved in your life, like it doesn't, like your life doesn't get better. I got to say the chats are popping too. Falley confirms, never had a Clarence Thomas
Fact check
mention. We got James over on the Twitter X. James, thanks for tuning in. And then the other James over on Rumble. Something happened to Rumble, had to reload. And he has his sister and dad listening. Welcome, great. James, sister, and dad. We are so glad to have you.
And then we got Larry here who gives the Rats A. I give a Rats A because I care about this country, Larry. I care about truth. I care about morality, justice, all of that good stuff there. But different strokes.
All right. Should we hear the GOAT, Clarence Thomas?
Here we go, folks.
What role did Robinson play in the development of SB 8? Justice Thomas, Robinson is the only reason SB 8 exists. We fought tooth and nail in the Robinson litigation itself in telling the courts that we did not think the Constitution permitted us to draw a second majority black district. As you know, under protest, we drew SB 8 because the threat was that the federal courts were going to do it if we didn't. And that's, I mean, I think that's the best way to conceive of why SB 8 exists. We would never pass SB 8 in the first instance without Robinson, Justice Thomas.
What were the findings in Robinson?
The finding by the Middle District in Robinson was that the plaintiffs in this case were likely to show a violation of Section 2, and the likely violation, and I'm using very broad terminology because I do not know what the underlying violation is. I can't articulate that for you, Justice Thomas, because I don't think anybody can. But I think the finding in the district court's mind in that case was that the likelihood of a Section 2 violation meant that a majority black district was required, a second one. And I think like that was the bottom line, and when our legislature saw that, we understood the marching order, and that's why you see SB 8 as it exists today.
Just briefly, what were the findings that led to that conclusion?
Well, Your Honor, running through the preconditions and the totality of the circumstances, I mean, I think the totality of the circumstances did most of the work for the Middle District in Robinson. Senate Factor 1, the official history of past discrimination, Justice Thomas, we can never outrun the bad era of poll taxes, of grandfather clauses, of literacy tests. I think we're always going to lose across the board on that kind of analysis, and that's what the Middle District in Robinson focused on, is how bad was Louisiana in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and, you know, add all that together, and at the end you have a vote dilution finding that I don't think is clearly articulable in the way that SFFA requires a finding of discrimination to be specified.
Now, I want to get a picture of the goat up here while we're talking. There he is.
Oh, yeah. Clarence. Yeah. How funny is this? You got a black guy and a Hispanic guy arguing at the Supreme Court, and people call him racist. Todd, it just cracks me up.
Yeah, Julie is still here. I mean, thanks for sticking around, Julie. Julie should go to Rumble. I think she would have a lot of fun and learn a lot over at Rumble. Go to the American Tribune, Julie, rumble.com.
Yeah. Now let's just spell this out. We are in the year of the Lord 2025, and Benjamin, I'm going to mispronounce his last name.
Aguinalda.
Did I get that right?
Aguinalda.
Aguinalda is saying they had a case, and in that case, the lower court said you need to create a black majority district in the state of Louisiana. So that stupid district that you see was created because if Louisiana didn't create it, the federal government would have created it. And think of that. In the year 2025, you can have a federal judge go to a state, you need to make a black majority district. I have never heard anything more racist in my life. It is beyond the pale. And I'd also like to highlight, you can kind of tell, like Clarence Thomas, refined, asking good questions, clarifying questions, dignified. Like that's what a Supreme Court judge should, shouldn't it, Todd?
You know, one would think, Jason, that seems how I would want my SCOTUS judge to comport themselves. And I can't help but notice, and again, this is what they do, no one can ever point to acts of racism in 2025. Every single time you're told America's a bad country, it's because of 1619, it's because of the antebellum South, it's because of Jim Crow. What they don't do in the modern age is actually observe modern age acts of racism at a systemic level, even on an individual level. Like how many racists are there that actually have any sway or influence over one's life? But this guy's out there, he's saying like, well, we can't ever run away from poll taxes and the literacy test. So that justifies black-only districts in 2025 because we'll never outrun the legacy of slavery. And isn't that convenient, Jason, that, well, we'll never solve it, so we'll always need to implement race Marxism in this country?
Yeah, I got to say, too, and I'm going to direct this to Julie. Notice Julie, who probably doesn't politically agree with us, will come in and say mean things. And how do we reply, especially the Rumble community? Shout out to the Rumble community. We got Dee Dee over there saying, come on over, Julie. We got Bubba. Good day. We've got Fally. Come on over, Julie. Come to Rumble. Educate yourself. Notice we aren't going to call you names. we might make fun of your COVID banner. I'll be honest, and we'll poke good-hearted humor at this. But I don't think people understand. If you walked up to the average citizen and said, "Did you know in 2025, like judges can rule you need to make a black majority district," they'd be like, "No way. You're a conspiracy theorist. What are you talking about?" No, folks, that's the thing. You just heard testimony that just happened a couple days ago in the Supreme Court. It is crazy, Fred. Thank you, Fred.
People
Todd,
stop saying like you sound boosted. Maybe we should bring that back.
Right.
And
oh my gosh. Now, should we? Oh yeah.
I'm really fired up about this here.
Nail it. Dems use emotions to turn off the logic part of their brain. It's remarkable, you know. And one story too, and then we'll go to the KBJ responses. But I was talking to Mike last night, our business partner, about this brainwashing that happens. And I tell the story of my buddy Jim, who we get together every couple of weeks. I remember back in the Fine People hoax, I showed him the whole video right when it happened. He's like, "Oh, he really didn't say that." Then 3 months later, we got together again, and he's like, "I can't believe he called them fine people." I'm like, "Dude, we watched the video." So I played it again. He's like, "Oh, you're right. He really didn't say that." And like every 3 months we did it. And finally, after a year, he understood, okay, Donald Trump didn't call white supremacists fine people. And we still refer back to this event from years ago now when the media lies to him. And I'm like, dude, do you remember when you believed the fine people hoax like 5 times and I had to keep debunking it? Drives me nuts.
But the problem with the Jims of the world is they'll debunk that one singular episode, and they never ask the question, like, if they lied to me about that, and it was so obviously a lie, what else might they be lying about? They never ask that question. So Jim, even though his entire worldview of Trump was predicated on him calling neo-Nazis and white supremacists fine people, turns out that didn't happen, but Jim won't change his mind about Donald Trump. He still thinks of him as a racist, even though the clip he believes it from was debunked here. And so that is what we are up against. And Jason, I do have one more comment on the district in here, and then we'll play the other clip here, because the Supreme Court case, you listen to these arguments, you're like, my God, this should be a 9-0 decision. Of course, this is insane. What is the limiting principle on this? So Democrats love the idea of like, we don't need 1, but we need 2. And they don't explain why. I mean, I could actually tell you why, maybe because Louisiana is 2/3 white and 1/3 black. So maybe it makes sense to have 2 out of your 6 districts being black if you want to go that way. So that makes sense to me, at least on the surface. It's also evil and corrupt. But they don't even make that argument. They're just like, we need another black district. Well, why? We just need another black district. That's all they tell you.
It is crazy. And you see these refined, and here's what's funny, Mike, I seriously doubt the Supreme Court would ever rule that way to favor only one race, but I could be wrong. I'm telling you, Mike, they have ruled that this has been challenged about every 5-10 years since the 60s. And every year they've ruled some version of, and I apologize for oversimplifying it. Yes, we know this is wrong, but we're letting Congress try to right a wrong from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So that's literally happened. And if you can tell from Clarence Thomas's argument, he's like, no, we're done with this. We're going to go colorblind. But let's listen to one of the famous, Todd, this makes me sick.
Understand why your answer to Justice Kagan's question about, is this a compelling state interest, is no. The answer is obviously yes, that you have an interest in remedying the effects of racial discrimination that we identify using this tool. Whether you go too far in your remedy is another issue, right?
Your Honor, I think step 0 in all of these cases, it was certainly step 0 in the Robinson litigation, is the plaintiffs came in and said, we want another majority black district.
I thought they came in and said, we are not receiving equal electoral opportunity because our votes are being diluted.
Which is the same way of saying we deserve a second
No, it's not, because again, just trust me on this. The second electoral or second district is a remedy that one could offer for a problem that we've identified.
I just have to ask, Jason, I don't know if it's in the clip here. What is the actual problem that this DEI justice is alluding to? Can we spell this out? Like, what is the problem, Democrats? That is it the slavery? Is that really the argument? Like we had slavery once, and so that's a problem today?
Well, and I gotta say, so what Benjamin is making is the way the Supreme Court in previous decisions laid out these rules. They said you had to do A, if A, then you do B, and if B, then you do C. And A had to be how you're showing blacks are disenfranchised, other than you just want more black votes. So you had to show where the way they drew this up was bad, or like poll taxes, like, okay, you know, there's disparate impact on them. But if you don't do A, you don't get to do B and C. And the point Benjamin's pointing out is like they can't show how just because you're 30% of the population doesn't mean you get 30% of the House seats. Like that isn't how this works. And you know, if that, like they are doing this just for Democrats. And I want to point out too, Justice Jackson's demeanor. Notice how like she sounds like the opposing counsel, where Clarence Thomas is like, explain your argument to me, and you know, being very dignified and respectful. Jackson is just arguing with this guy and like, you're wrong, and he's like, no, I'm really not. And if you know like voting laws, like what Benjamin's pointing out is kind of like Miranda rights, like everybody just knows. And KJB is completely wrong. And one of the court reporters who was there said when she was saying that, even the liberals were like looking at her like, are you an idiot? And then she breaks out the trust me, bro. No, trust me on this. This is great.
I'm trying to imagine a different world, Jason, too. And then we got a little bit more of the clip, folks. And then we have just the chef's kiss clip of KBJ. I cannot say your name today. Would they make the same argument if, pick a demographic that votes conservative? I don't know, Cuban Americans. What if Miami had to have like a Cuban American district? Would they be making the same argument if they knew those were Trump voters? Is this? But you have to understand, folks, this is not an argument based on principle. This is an argument based on consolidating political power. That is it. Blacks vote overwhelmingly for Democrats for some reason. No one's ever explained that to me still, other than the freebies. That is it. They know that blacks will vote for them, so they want to get as much political power as possible.
And like I say, I just can't believe how undignified and how she is arguing with this attorney like she's opposing counsel. So to answer the question that the guy on Facebook asked earlier, like, I can't believe the Supreme Court would favor this. Michael, I ask you, after listening to this clip, let me know if you think Justice Jackson is going to vote for all black districts.
Boy, head scratcher there, Jason.
The whole Robinson litigation was about identifying the problem. Is this really happening? In many Section 2 cases, the court says, you're wrong, you're fine. There is not an electoral opportunity being denied to you, go away. In this case, the court said, I see, I'm looking at the factors, I appreciate what you're saying, you've proven that we have this problem. And so
again, the problem that is not a problem.
Yes. Yeah, and the problem isn't that blacks can't vote, isn't that people are like there's poll taxes. The problem is that you have to think of this, folks. In the year of the Lord 2025, you have to have a proportionate number of black members of Congress, because somehow Judge Jackson, who wouldn't be there without DEI, somehow like we are disenfranchising blacks. But Todd, the second clip. Mwah.
That's so good. So good.
That remedial action, absent discriminatory intent, is really not a new idea in the civil rights laws. And my kind of paradigmatic example of this is something like the ADA. Congress.
Right. Just to set this up, folks, ADA is for people with disabilities, the American Disabilities Act of 1990. Now that we know what we're talking about, black districts, and she's bringing up the ADA, everyone be seated.
Passed the Americans with Disabilities Act against the backdrop of a world that was generally not accessible to people with disabilities. And so it was discriminatory in effect because these folks were not able to access these buildings. And it didn't matter whether the person who built the building or the person who owned the building intended for them to be exclusionary. That's irrelevant. Congress said the facilities have to be made equally open to people with disabilities if readily possible. I guess I don't understand why that's not what's happening here. The idea in Section 2 is that we are responding to current day manifestations of past and present decisions that disadvantage minorities and make it so that they don't have equal access to the voting system, right? They're disabled. In fact, we use the word disable in Milligan. We say,
her words, not ours. We would be nuked on Facebook, Jason, if we dared call blacks disabled. But if you're a race Marxist appointed by Joe Biden, then you can get away with that, apparently. I'm going to play that
Yes, folks, you just had a Supreme Court justice call black people disabled.
Disadvantage minorities and make it so that they don't have equal access to the voting system, right? They're disabled. In fact, we use the word disable in Milligan. We say that's a way in which you see that these processes are not equally open.
Can you imagine if Donald Trump said black people are disabled, or any conservative said black people are disabled? There would be rioting in the streets. They would play that clip on loop till the end of time. And here is her premise too. She keeps saying access to voting. Nobody is restricting their access to voting. They are not going to rig it where you can get your selected representatives, which is what she's arguing. Like, because we don't set up a district that they're guaranteed to win, the Democrats, because this isn't about black and white, because I 1000% guarantee if that population voted conservative or Republican, she would not be making this argument. And like Todd said, that like we're not going to get a Cuban district in Florida, but because it is a Democrat district, she is a Democrat partisan, she is going to die on the cross for this.
Yeah, and the whole idea, she's not just a DEI hire too. I saw some of these comments here, so I want to go back. I'll go back to that right now here. Yeah, she's DEI, but it's worse than that. She's just a race Marxist. She doesn't deserve to be there, but she's there for the specific reason that she will promote the regime's race Marxist narrative for the next 40 years if she's lucky. It is astounding here. And again, we want to talk about disenfranchisement. Jason, did you know this is zero sum? And so if we carve out black-only districts, by necessity, you disenfranchise the white residents, the Asian residents, the Hispanic residents, every other resident at their expense, simply to give blacks their own district here. There is nothing, folks, again, more racist than what is happening here. And yes, Louisiana is 2/3 white, so you can call this a very anti-white legislation, an argument being made by Ketanji Brown Jackson.
I got to say, some of these comments are funny. Francis might be my favorite comment.
Yeah.
Or Justice Thomas having to work with her. Like, I go back to my corporate world where you'd sit down with like, you know, a group of like 10, 15, like leaders, and there's always some moron just making like dumb points that don't even make any sense. I'd be like, like this is painful. Yeah, poor Justice Thomas is sitting there going like, man, I gotta listen to this woman. This is crazy.
Man, it dilutes the Supreme Court. You have a Clarence Thomas, and he shares the bench with just 8 other people, and one of them is her.
Right.
Cool.
Now we should talk about the ramifications. Then we'll move on to the next topic. Sorry, we went a little long on that, folks. Hope it was educational. Hope you learned something. Hey, you got to see Ketanji Brown Jackson call black people disabled. Draw from that conclusion what you will. And before anybody gets too excited, there was a similar case the Supreme Court heard about 4 or 5 years ago, and it went 5-3 with the liberals, where it was Roberts and Kavanaugh, of all people, who voted with the liberals to keep this in effect. This case, the people that know the Supreme Court way better than me, seems like Kavanaugh and Roberts are ready to flip. Coney Barrett will flip. But Todd, should we pull up what this will do to Democrats? So if you look at this map on the left, this is just the South. This is what the racial districts look like. You see the diagonal in Louisiana. The map on the right is if you drew it under the normal pretenses of what you would have for congressional districts. There's a lot of, you're creating some purple districts, but right now it looks like it would be at least 12 seats the Democrats would lose. Those 12 seats would be Republican pickups, so a 24-point swing for Republicans. And if you do that math and go, if we would have got rid of this racist nonsense a long time ago, and we talk about illegals on previous episodes, Democrats, because they count illegals in the census, get about anywhere from 10 to 20 additional seats, which would be another 20 to 40 seat swing. Republicans should have like a 40 or 50 seat majority in the House. But if the Supreme Court rules on this and rules quick enough, the maps on the right are maps you could see drawn if the state legislators get off their butts and get it done. And think of a 24 seat swing, Todd.
I mean, I don't know if Mike Johnson with 24 seats will be any more effective, but it is a preventative measure against Democrat tyranny in the House. And so I will take a win. I had to Johnny Raincloud it, though. I don't know what Republicans are going to have in the House would do with all the seats, given what we've seen so far. But yes, this is far better than the makeup right now. And I got to say, Jason, on principle, I am fine with gerrymandering. I think if you're in power, you should wield power. But I also got to say, you have to gerrymander now because the Democrats will gerrymander you out of existence. And so on principle, I'm fine with it. But I think it's an imperative that Republicans take this when the Supreme Court overturns it and make those districts as red as possible.
I concur. Now, Todd, I mentioned illegals voting.
They don't vote, Jason. They don't vote.
They don't vote. Illegals can't vote. That never happens. Can we pivot to Minnesota? I think we've covered this pretty well. So in the state of Minnesota, Governor Walz, Kim Jong Walz, actually passed a law that gives illegals the opportunity to get a driver's license. And there is a separate law that says when you fill out your driver's license application, you get registered to vote. Now, the only thing on that form is you literally have to check a box that says, yes, register me to vote. That's it. And so you got two separate laws working together, mean that if you're an illegal, you go get your license. The only thing stopping you getting registered to vote not is checking a box. We covered it on an episode like 6 months, a year ago, and people called this crazy on the left, but no, it's really happening. And Todd, should we give an update on that? This one just came out of the House of Representatives hearing in Minnesota this week.
Someone could, they get their driver's license, again, because we give them to anybody here. They register to vote. It doesn't matter.
I know this isn't related, Jason, but I love Dem logic. Roads will be safer if illegals have IDs.
Yeah.
They think that. I mean, they wanted them to vote. That's the real story, but they actually sold the public and boosted voters in Minnesota are like, yeah, it'll be safer to drive now that they have a license.
With the social security number, so they're flagged, but they come in as long as they have an ID, which is that driver's license, and they sign that they're, eligible to vote, they can vote. And they're then no longer flagged. They're on the system. Is that correct?
Mr. Linnell.
Madam Chair, if I could add the, and maybe stepping back from those that are flagged as CID on the roster, for anyone that's presenting documentation to register to vote, that is affirmation of their identity. The driver's license has not been used as proof of citizenship for the purposes of registering to vote. It's affirming that they are who they say they are. So
Right.
In any of these cases where someone were to cast a ballot if they were ineligible to vote, There are also reports that are generated post-election for voters that are challenged that counties will run to show status of voters that had been updated due to the fact that they've now cast a ballot that can be reviewed and referred to the county attorney.
Okay, so the answer is yes to my question.
Oh, well, should we play the clip again for Mark? Does not matter if they have a license or not. They're illegal immigrants. They cannot vote in our elections. I said that sarcastically. I can't tell if Mark's being sarcastic or he believes that.
Right. And Mark, Todd and I are both from Minnesota. Just to explain what happens in Minnesota, you fill out a driver's license. There is one spot on the license. You know how you fill out all the forms on the application? They literally mark, yes, I want to be registered to vote. There is no check if they're a citizen. They get sent into the voting registration list. Now they're on the voter registration list. You go to vote. They don't even check your driver's license when you go to vote. In Minnesota, I walk into my city hall, go, hey, I'm Jason Robertson. Here's my address. And they go, okay, here's your thing. Go vote. So if you're an illegal, let's hypothetically say you're an illegal who wants to commit fraud, which we've covered in previous episodes how bad the Somali community is in Minnesota with their fraud. Or let's say you're somebody who's worried about getting deported. So you have an vested interest in making sure somebody who's not going to deport you wins. So you mark, yep, I want to vote when you do your license, which you can get. You mark, yep, you go in and vote. They don't even ask for your license. And then after the fact, this report gets sent to somewhere in the state government where they go, okay, well, I see Bob Smith voted. We got to double check to make sure Bob Smith is a citizen. But nowhere along any of this does Bob Smith have to prove he's a citizen. So explain to me how that's going to get reversed. And you really think with how effective the state government is that they're going to let you do that. Now, if they do catch and prosecute, you'll see like, oh, yeah, that could happen. And it's funny because people are like, oh, that'll never happen. We covered the Iowa guy who was like a Nigerian illegal or wherever he was from. He voted and he registered to vote like in 2 different states. And it's come out. He's getting charged with it. But this is the most insane liberal logic ever. Like, show up, get a license. We'll register you to vote because we want everybody to get registered. And then you can actually vote. You still at no point have had to prove you are a citizen before casting the ballot. Then after the fact, we're magically going to disqualify your vote because it turns out you aren't a citizen. Todd,
we have such a robust oversight process that we verify all the ballots that got cast and we run it against another spreadsheet that says who's here. Like, does anyone believe that Minnesota's government, the county office, would be like, well, we got this list post-election and Democrats won, so should we check that? No. And they catch 5, and there's maybe 5,000.
It is remarkable. Now, I got to say, shout out Sheila over on the Facebook. No, if they're here illegally, send them back. They don't deserve any kind of ID. You know, for anybody new to the show, Todd and I are pretty clear. If you're here illegally, go home. I don't want any argument about, oh, you came here as a child 50 years ago. I don't want any argument about, like, oh, you're a refugee. If you're here illegally, go home. And I have zero sympathy when I see these videos. The left loves to try this emotional blackmail where they're like, oh, look, it's grandma and they're deporting her. Sorry, grandma's here illegally. And unequivocally, every time they go talk to grandma, she has a Mexican flag hanging up in her house. She speaks Spanish. She couldn't name any of how many amendments are in the Constitution. I'm sorry, go home, come in the right way.
And for the family separation narrative, I think I brought this up last week or 2 weeks ago, but I love this argument so much. They're like, but they're separating families. Guess what? If I don't pay taxes, my family gets separated too. So is that grounds for no more income taxes? Like, are they going to defend me? Like, well, Todd's getting separated from his family. He didn't pay taxes. No, those aren't my rules. Those are your rules. So I should be upset about family separation or not, guys?
Ugh.
I love Sally's comment. Sally, this is controversial in 2025. Don't let them vote. Would you know that half this country is advocating for that right now? They want free healthcare, voting rights for all these people. Suddenly saying that illegals shouldn't vote. has been carved out as a political debate. We have lost the plot, Jason, when we disagree on whether or not illegals should be voting.
Right. And indirectly, here's what's sad. Even the most generous interpretation, illegals get to vote right now. Because if you look at California, they count all the illegals in California as on the census. California gets House seats based on the total population. And because of that, the way they draw the maps, like, there are certain districts, a Republican will win or a Democrat will win. They drop the seats in the a Democrat's going to win area. So illegals get represented in Congress. Now, they aren't able to physically cast a ballot, but they're given electoral power because of their count in the census. So when the Supreme Court overturns this ruling that we've been diving into, if they do a new census and just count citizens and set that for voting, Todd, we may never see Democrats take power in our lifetime.
Inshallah. Yeah, Market Zero back with a comment again here. I don't know if we read it the first time, so I'll read it now. Like the Dems use the line through emotions who think of the children and families get people to obstruct ICE from getting illegal criminals out. Yeah, they are children. I've made this point too. They have the mind of a 5-year-old. My 5-year-old can think through issues better than Democrat voters that are grown adults because they are stunted. They have arrested development. They are stuck as 4 because, again, I have a 5-year-old now and I see how she processes things and thinks through things. It's like, well, you're more advanced than most Minnesota voters.
Oh,
I do want to comment. Fally, I know Fally brought up Minnesota here. A little bias on this one here, but Fally knows some people in Minnesota. Yes, we do as well. The TDS is a parent. Bumper stickers of Trump getting arrested. He's a liar. All the fun stuff. Minnesota is a unique state, Jason. I think we probably have more TDS per capita. Like, Minnesota, nice. Everyone's got their cabins, affluent. I mean, they like to say it's a well-educated state, whatever. We had a lot of things going for us, predominantly white still, but then the TDS is off the charts.
Yeah, and it's remarkable. And actually, Fally provides a great segue to our last segment because I think Fally, not to dox you, but I'm pretty sure Fally's out. Isn't it Montana that Fally's in? Or
Montana.
Montana. So Fally lives in a very red MAGA area, which Montana's beautiful. The people are nice. You could probably leave your car unlocked. High trust society, very much like all the things we want in America. Not to sound bad, but it's very racially pure, where it's mainly white folks out in Montana. I mean, there's a little bit of diversity, mainly Christians, and a liberal from Minnesota. And Fally will have to update us on future podcasts. Like, they went out there probably because they were sick of high taxes. They were sick of their house getting robbed. They were sick of all the stupid things that they still are going to vote for in Montana. And Democrats just have no understanding. You are doing these policies. You are ruining your area. And then you flee to somewhere good and you just want to do the same dumb stuff. And part of that is because they just don't understand. And I found this clip. Somebody had shared it on TikTok, and we've joked on the show. I think it'll be a fun way to wrap up this. Democrats don't understand what the world's like. And they don't understand that in America, in the year of the Lord 2025, you are living in the most blessed spot in the history of mankind. Like, every day you should pray to God. Thank God I actually was born in America in this era. Like, I have food, plenty of food. I have, I get air conditioning in my house. I own a car. I can take my phone. This morning, Todd, my wife was saying, like, we want to get some more fresh syrup for the grandbaby because we're watching her this weekend. I went on my phone, hit a few buttons. Fresh, organic, like, fresh made syrup is coming to my house and it'll be here tomorrow. But Democrats think like that's just the condition of the world. And that's not how it is. So should we play this clip? Did I miss anything framing it up?
Yeah, well, again, to go back to Market Zero's comment, they literally are children. They are children, not like children. They are mentally and emotionally children. And so, like you said about moving, because they're going to find it better somewhere else. Like Rosie went to Ireland, the whiter, more Christian country, to escape the white Christian country of America. Here's this clown who fled Trump's America. And I got to give her props, by the way, Jason, for following through on that. I wish they would all follow through on that empty threat. But she did. And it turns out she doesn't like it.
Country to move somewhere else, make sure that the location you choose isn't based off of fear and lack mentality. I regret moving to Costa Rica. It's a beautiful country. I love the nature and wildlife, but moving to a third world country where I don't know the language, I don't have any connections, resources, or opportunities, that didn't
Or a hairstylist. Am I right, Jason?
You're right.
make my life any easier by any means. I was just so scared of what's going on in America politically that I was in fight or flight. I was like, how am I gonna afford to survive? Like, how am I gonna find a place to live? Like, I was freaking out. And then I came here and made my life so much harder. And now I'm trying to go back, and I just like wish I didn't leave in the first place. And it's so weird to like want to move to America right now with everything that's going on, but I just left so many privileges and resources behind, and I want them back. It sucks, but I kind of grew up in an interesting way. I was like the poorest person in the wealthiest rooms throughout most of my childhood. I was extremely wealthy till I was like age 6. I had this beautiful waterfront mansion with a private beach and pool, and then my parents got divorced and I ended up with a parent who didn't have money. So we were living out of like trailers and hotels and lower income housing, but I was still in these really wealthy situations. Like I was in private school and cotillions and dance lessons, and I always thought that I was so poor because I was the poorest person that I knew. And all of my friends had like millionaire and billionaire parents. Now that I've traveled, I've seen like real poverty, and I'm like, oh, I wasn't poor. But as a kid, I had these really luxurious vacations through my friends and family members where like my first introduction to Costa Rica, it was like when I was 17 years old. I came with my friend's family and we stayed at exclusive resorts. We were having lunch at the Four Seasons, and like same with my Hawaii experiences. My family friends took me and we stayed at the Grand Wailea and the Hyatt, all these really fancy luxury resorts, and we would explore the areas too. But you know, living in Nonavale or Pahoa is very different than taking a vacation at the Grand Wailea or Four Seasons. So, you know, my travels and moves, I've really realized how privileged I've been. And there's a lot of things that like made me run away from LA and Orange County, some traumatic experiences and terrible people. But I left a lot of resources and great people behind, and I need to be in those environments again.
God.
Folks, this is what we're dealing with. We have these crazy liberals. Like, this sounds like a pretty rich woman who went to private school. She went to fancy resorts in Costa Rica, and she screeched about how horrible Trump was, how awful it is. I can't believe the white supremacist Judeo-Christian people that set up this country were so horrible. So I'll give her credit. She goes to another country and she sets up shop, and she goes, holy crap. Like, turns out, even when I was on the poor end of my friend group, I was really in good shape. And like, I think Mark's saying it over there, stay there then. Oh, yeah. We probably have some more colorful things to say about this. But, Todd, we should wrap up the YouTube, Facebook part and go Rumble only.
I think it's that time, Jason. I do just want to add my 2 cents here. The sense of entitlement from Democrats, it's never enough. When you think they've maxed out their entitlement, this unimpressive woman thinks that she deserves to live the lifestyle she had as a child, millionaire status, fancy vacations. Why? Well, because she's better than you. She just deserves it. She's entitled to all that. And then she's going, do you think she's going to come back and vote for America First in 2028, Jason, after she realizes this country was pretty good to me? No.
I will guarantee she will not.
All right. James is over on the Rumble there. I don't know what's going on with the Rumble on your show, but I keep losing your show. Yeah, that darn Rumble censorship is back at us. But folks, speaking of Rumble, Jason and I are going to cut the feed on Facebook and YouTube. We hate to say goodbye To our Facebook friends, maybe Mark was ready for us to go. Thank you for choosing to watch us. Anyways, Mark, come find us on Rumble. Go to rumble.com, search out the American Tribune. We got another half hour in the clip here. My personal favorite, I am a single issue voter. Whoever promises and delivers on deporting Ilhan Omar, they got my vote. So we have some Ilhan Omar new clips. It never stops with this deranged and ingrate. But we are back. Facebook audience, we are not done. Again, go to rumble.com. YouTube audience, not done. Go to rumble.com, search out the American Tribune. But that's it for us here. We will be back next week on Julie's Facebook feed at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. And like we promised, Ilhan Omar, it's just getting started, folks.
Oh, yeah. We'll see everybody on the flip side, Rumble only. Oh, and